I'm Bodie Long,
I'm Andy Waldo.
I'm Alex Petrov.
and we're going to talk about the ethics of gift giving in the professional realm. Tom was named the department manager of a new chemical processing unit. He's responsible for hiring staff and overseeing designers to ensure that the plant is safe, operable, and maintainable. He's also responsible for starting up the plant. From past experience, Tom realized that a specific valve could be used to make the plant safer and cheaper. Due to the company's trust in Tom, they decided to place an order of these valves. Once the order was placed, the salesman of the valve company offered Tom a trip to South Africa to fish. And Andy's going to talk about possible code of ethics that could apply to this scenario.
Thanks, Bodie. Now there's two codes, one from the National Society of Professional Engineers and another code from the American Association of Mechanical Engineers. And these two codes cover three important issues. The first being that engineers aren't to give, receive, or solicit any gift or exchange that could impact a contract, impact work. And the second thing that this first code discusses is that the public should not be able to construe the issue as anything other than a professional exchange in the professional realm. Now, the second code discusses conflict of interest. If you have an employer, an employee, maybe a contractor, if there's any sort of exchange or a gift between those two, it could create a conflict of interest. And this conflict of interest could have a direct impact on the job being performed. And that is something that we want to avoid entirely. Now, moving on, I'll give it to Alex to discuss at what point in the scenario Tom might have been bribed.
Thank you. So gift giving is a very complex issue in general because it's very hard to estimate whether somebody is being bribed or somebody is just exercising a professional courtesy. There are certain paradigm cases where it's very easy to say that the bribe has been offered. For example, if somebody was offered a fishing trip before he accepted the valves, and the valves were obviously worse than their competitors, that's clearly a bribe. What if it was just a cheap pen? What if it was a $5 pen Tom was offered at the end? That's clearly not a bribe. So the easiest way to evaluate every specific situation is to compare it to paradigm cases like that and see which ones it resembles the most and which one it doesn't, and see look at all the similarities and differences, and that way evaluate it. So our team came to a decision. We looked at the situation. We think Tom shouldn't accept the offer for primarily two reasons. The first reason is it influences future decisions made by Tom, made by Jim, made by his bosses. It creates an uneven playing field for different parties who are willing to participate in free market exchange for that plan. It will give a certain advantage to Jim moving forward. And the other issue is the public perception of the issue. Perception is very important in business world. It's often decisive in terms of whether somebody's career is saved or completely destroyed. In other words, using IBM's old saying, if you were to read about it in a newspaper, what would it look like? Would it look like a bribe? Would it look like just nothing? How would you react if you read about it in a newspaper? And we think in this case, if somebody reads in a newspaper that Jim offered Tom a fishing trip later on, somebody might think, well, what if valves are just worse than their competitors? And maybe even data was just changed a little bit to offer Jim competitive advantage. Or what if Jim was just chosen because he offered that trip? So in our opinion, any professional engineers should decline any possible gifts that they are offered, whether it's $5 pen or it's an expensive fishing trip to South America or South Africa. It doesn't matter the quality or price of the gift. It's way too much of a perception issue to worry about things like that. And engineers worry about a lot of things in their professional career, so we think they shouldn't worry about ethical issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you.